Matt Gannon. We are back. Final thoughts. Boots day 2. Tuesday boots. Obviously, we will have Wednesday boots tomorrow, and that will be up on the site. Final thoughts and everything up there. But from a podcast perspective for the week, this will be part 2. And once again, I'm excited because this course is absurd.
Yeah, it is a real test, and I really think it just honestly when we came back on the screen after talking a little bit off air, I noticed we're wearing a lot of black right now. We're wearing very dark, and that feels like the mood of the golf course. It's going to be guys in bad moods, guys really down on themselves after making a triple, making an 8, and you got to get through the dark time. So I think this is a good scene we got going for the pod.
And I've obviously got the OG Ben Sherrick shirt going. Get over to the site, check out the merch for the steel-toed boots here in Pittsburgh, which remains the story. A true test, a true challenge of grit. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how the course maybe played a little bit differently today. I wouldn't say massively differently, but if anything, we saw more of the ferocity. I think I also want to talk about the greens more than we did yesterday because we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about kind of the tee to green challenge, but I think I zoned in, at least I think you did as well too, on kind of getting a feel for how insane these greens actually are. And obviously, if you didn't listen to the pod yesterday, hop on there. A lot we talked about there. I think we'll be a little bit more player centric today, since we didn't talk a lot about players yesterday. And I think ultimately we're both kind of zooming in on our cards. So that's kind of the game plan. Jersey, got anything else for the people before we jump in?
No, I mean, pretty straightforward. Obviously, we're not going to get to every player in the field today. Got a ton of players up on the site, and a ton more will be tomorrow. And there was some yesterday as well. So we'll talk about X amount of guys through the odds board, and leave you with that.
Where do you rank this in difficulty of boots from how the nines are set up, from how big of a ballpark it is, that there's a freeway running in the middle of the course? Definitely not the most difficult. I think you've faced some tougher tests this year, but where does this fall when you also factor in 3 to 3.5 hour pace of play, which is not great for boots and certainly not great for the players?
Yeah, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of boots ability difficulty, I would probably make it a 7. It's definitely on the harder side of courses that I've bootsed out this year and courses that we've bootsed together in the past for a few reasons. But the reason it's not like a full 10 is because there's so many guys in the U.S. Open field. You're always going to see groups of 3 to 4, like on whatever hole you're seeing. So you can see a few guys, like for example, at Quail Hollow, they were playing in like 2s a ton, 3s a ton, and that was just one hole at a time. You can only see really one hole, and it was tough for me by myself to get everyone in the field while I was at Quail Hollow. And you go to a course like Sawgrass or Waialae, they're intertwined like crazy. There's not that many trees and the holes are designed for viewing, so it's a really, really bootsable course. But this is obviously a big boy track, really long, thick rough, not an easy walk, super hilly. So 7 out of 10.
The most challenging thing I think about the walk is having to dodge the mud. You got to be you can't just be casually walking around. You can't be looking off elsewhere when you're walking. You got to watch out for the mud in front of you. But with that being said, I think that ties into what we saw with the course today, because it did not rain overnight, really, between Monday to Tuesday. It was dry all day today, and it really got windy, and the sun really came out in the afternoon. And it's not looking like it's supposed to rain as much as we maybe originally thought going into this week. It's been super wet in this area for the last 2 to 3 weeks, and that's why the walking areas and the low points where they haven't been doing the holy treatment of the rough and the rest of the course like they have been more inside of the ropes. But the rest of the week looks a little bit drier than expected, and we saw a golf course that was firming up today. And it happened rapidly, I would say.
Yeah, it was around like mid-afternoon. The wind picked up tremendously. Sadly, it's not looking like we're going to get wind like we saw today. But if the golf course, if it just stays dry outside, and sunny outside, the golf course is going to play closer to what we saw today. And we definitely altered our winning score by a shot or two than what we saw yesterday. That could easily go down tomorrow. We'll report back on it going into the weekend. But we saw it back in 2016. Only 4 guys were under par. Not crazy if that happens again. Maybe even less. So we will see what happens. But definitely a more difficult test today than we saw yesterday.
And when you say, and if you listen to the pod yesterday, obviously you know the level of test that we thought it was. So this is taking it up even more extreme level. And when you say we changed our scoring, we had it in the -5-ish, -6-ish range, probably based on what we saw yesterday. Bumped it down to -3 today. And I still see a world where it finishes over par. I think, and tell me what your thoughts are here. There's a couple scenarios that I think can play out that would impact the scoring. Now, if it was as windy as it was today, I literally think the scoring average would be like 78. And I think
Yeah,
it would be 5 over par. But because the wind is not going to pick up, we're not quite going to get to that level. You agree with that?
and that's all like TBD, because predicting wind in this sport that we try to do is never once ever been right. So who knows? It can pick up windy and then it could become a carnage fest. But from what we have projected and what we're thinking, and we're going to get a tiny bit more rain over the weekend. I think I'm a little bit lower than you. I'm going to go with the -4 to -5 range in a 2-horse race. I think two guys will duke it out to that score. I'm not saying it's 1 and 2 on the odds board. I'm just saying two guys will have a great week and go -4 to -5 while the rest of the field is even. The next third place is even, something like that. So I'm going to go there. I think you're stuck around like -3.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way, that if, like, I can see Scotty shooting any score. If Scotty plays
20
peak Scotty,
maybe.
yeah, he could genuinely do Tiger Pebble 2000 win by 15 shots. But besides like the true elites, the Scotty, the Bryson, honestly, I'd have a hard time going too much further than that. I could see them shooting a few under. They play their best. They get into the numbers you're talking about. If those guys struggle, which I wouldn't say is really what we're seeing so far, but anything can happen on a course like this. A massive number could await any player, no matter who you are. If those guys struggle, I could see the winning score getting over par, because it's more of the random guys. And to your point, you just said that you think even par is where like third place would be in that scenario. For it to be an over par score, it can't be one of those top guys, but it could be if those top guys don't ultimately show up.
Yeah, and there's a world in which you can, like we said, make an 8 on any hole, and then who knows how you rebound from that. And Scotty's going to make a double bogey this week. I can promise you that. And it's just like anything could happen on this golf course, and it's consensusly known as the hardest golf course in the world. And I didn't really know that, honestly. I'll hand up and say lack of ball knowledge. I didn't really know that Oakmont was. I know it was an insane test. I knew it was a very hard course, but I know it was kind of consensus one of the hardest golf courses in the world. And from listening to interviews, from listening to players, from seeing it, I know this is the hardest golf course I've ever seen from walking the ground. So surely going to be a test of. I don't have a word for what it's going to be a test of, but it's going to be a test.
And that's where, like, I think the lowest winning score, or like that highest winning score, which way is the right way to say it? Is it the lowest winning score or the highest winning score? The highest, right?
You're saying highest as in like over par?
As in like -5 is the.
I think that's the lowest. That'd be the lowest.
Okay.
Because if you're trying to get low, you're trying to like shoot.
But it's the highest total number of strokes that somebody has taken to win the tournament. You know?
No,
like
the highest total number of strokes would be plus. Because it'd be 280 in terms of or
right. But if the best I've ever seen is somebody shoot. Okay, never mind. We can't figure it out. But nonetheless, if somebody could break that down for us, that'd be helpful. When you do a full day of boots, your brain truly gets fried. And we're potting like an hour earlier than we did last night. I feel a little bit more alive and awake today. But your brain gets fried. So we know that made no sense. Somebody will know if it's the highest or lowest. But either way, the most difficult scoring conditions that I have seen from what the ending score of the tournament was, I believe is -5 at Brookline. What are the most recent U.S. Open scores? Hold on just a second.
Oh, -13 was 5 years ago, I think. I saw Dan Rappaport tweet this. Shout out to
so I think so. -6 has been the U.S. Open winning score the last 3 years. I've been at all of those courses. What was the PGA score the year that Brooks won? He was like -8, I think, at Oak Hill. -9. Okay, so the last 3 U.S. Opens have all been -6. And
I have the last 6, -13, -6, -6, -6, -10, -6.
Yeah. And I'm saying from a boots perspective, I've gone to the last 3 years. So I've seen what -6 has looked like. This is certainly more difficult than any of those courses.
Yeah.
It is a combination because of what happened as it's dried out, and this is the biggest difference I think versus what we saw yesterday. The greens we talked about being crazy yesterday, but today they're so fast. They're like the 18th green. You could make an 8 from being next to the green in 2. You legitimately could.
Let's talk about the 18th green, because you guys are going to see a little Boots 2 teaser that we're going to put out on Twitter well before this pod is released. And I teased up the greens. I talked 18th green. Let's talk about what we saw from the bunker. Greenside bunker, pin high, routine bunker shot. It looks like. What happens?
And the reason for what we're about to describe what happens is this is the falsest false front that's ever false fronted. Like, it is without question the falsest of all of the false fronts in the history.
We need to get on the horn with the people who do the U.S. Open Oakmont merch, and they have to, like, you know how every course has like a little lingo, the falsest false front
that's Oakmont. Ever false fronted.
We need that on a t-shirt,
because what I saw today from the greens in 18 probably is the best example of this, but there are other ones, is Pinehurst level rejection. The Pinehurst false fronts were previously the most false fronts we've ever seen.
But they were visually more like,
exactly.
Okay, it's a crown. You see it here. And this is something we noticed in the pod yesterday. Like, you don't know where the green starts and where the fairway ends because they look so similar. Someone's going to mark their ball incorrectly. And someone's going to, whether it's a caddy or someone, get the number wrong because they just see a fairway and a green looking exactly the same. And this 18th green, it's when you're side of it, you could see how slopey it is. But from the fairway, from farther away, it does not look anything too absurd. It looks fairly like a false front, but fairly benign. It is false. That's all you can say.
It's false. It's so false because, to your point, you can't really see it from back in the fairway because that's why it's so false. It was shiny. You could see that there was at least some difference. And also it's the Muta, so you can kind of see more of the grain. The bent into the POA, like, fairway green combination, I genuinely don't understand how they're going to know where to mark their ball. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's going to be some special rule put in. I remember when the U.S. Open was at Chambers Bay, because I caddied there, they used like a white line. Like, they literally sprayed like paint because it was all fescue at Chambers Bay, so it was really tough to tell. I don't understand how they're going to tell the difference. And because of that, on 18, massive rejections. Massive. But you combine the Pinehurst greens with the sneaky false fronts that you can't see with the deepest rough, second deepest rough to Oak Hill.
You combine the Oakmont greens, not the Pinehurst greens.
Yeah, you take the saying you take the Pinehurst level style of green.
Oh, okay.
Combine it with Oak Hill type of rough. That equals Oakmont.
Right. Okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah. And we saw a few guys, we were watching one group, greenside bunker, hit a literally pin high, no more than 8 to 10 yards, maybe like 15 yards away from the flag, green to work with, up and down. Right-handed player hitting a bunker shot with the falsest false front to his right-hand side. So obviously there's some right cut spin on the ball. He hit the ball, it landed at maybe 5 to 10 feet from the pin, started to roll out, and then bang. It goes closer to the falsest false front, closer, ends up running out to probably like 30 feet away from the pin. But it was, I kid you not, a millimeter away from going 70 yards down the fairway. Yeah. 70 yards. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Yeah. Like you said, there's like, if they put the pin, we saw guys trying to putt from places where there was no way the ball would ever stop there.
Terrible
poor prep.
We've seen some. But, some bad prep. We'll talk through that. But the prep, questionable prep, but not from like maybe a top player or two we'll talk about, but just like you're saying stuff where it's like, and there's so many amateurs, there's people not usually in the tournament. That's why we're saying this. But yeah, putting from where as soon as it dries out a tiny bit more, and that's why it already stood out yesterday. We saw the falsest false front yesterday and thought this looks difficult. Today, as it firmed up, the false front obviously gets taller the firmer it is, because like you still can land it near the top and a tiny bit of momentum runs it away. If it doesn't rain much more, I don't know how you could putt it from the back of the 18th green to the middle or the
keep
front
it on the green,
and keep it on the green without hitting the pin and going in.
Yeah. So You're gonna see some guys green putts this week. That's a promise. A few greens that will happen. So yeah, but that's the false front. It's gonna be quite the treat. 18th, and we made this proposition yesterday, and I kind of disagreed with you, but now I see why. What are you comfortable with? A 2-shot lead or a 1-shot lead going up 18th? I said 1, but it's definitely 2 because you make a 5 from the fairway. You can make a 5 from on the green. You could 3-putt it off in a heartbeat. So it's going to be a great finish come Sunday on that hole.
I honestly think I might even need more strokes because I'm picturing a guy who, drives it down the middle, gets some of the hard part out of the way, then comes up short, and I'm really hoping the pin is in the front. Please, USGA, front pin, maybe close to where it was today, a little slightly more towards like the center where there's.
I don't know how much. It was in the middle of the green today, and I don't know how much closer they could put it too. It was dead in the middle.
But yeah, let's go maybe 8 feet closer to the front. Really push it, because if the pin is there and you come up short, and let's say you've got the lead, you got a 2-shot lead, you could so easily have it come back to you. Or the only other option is going to be you don't want that to happen, so you launch it more to the back, and now you're putting back towards it. Even if you're on the green putting for par from like 50 feet, you could putt it off the green, and then I don't know, you could make a 10. Like there will be no safe lead going to 18 if the conditions stay like this. If it pours down rain, that's going to slow down some of what we saw today from the false front. And so ultimately, when we'll be thinking about it as we look at the weather report. But as you watch the weather, if it looks like it's going to end up raining way more, then some of these false fronts and stuff go away, which obviously makes it easier. But 18 in these conditions, tough hole.
And that we didn't even really we talked about the hole yesterday. The hole itself, tee to green, is not an easy hole either. You got to step up and hit a big drive. You got to step up and hit a massive middle or long iron. So then you get this green. So it's gonna be a fun hole.
And then also to speak to like how crazy some of these slopes are and just how speedy the greens have no friction on them. It's as if they're ice rinks. The ball, it doesn't matter. On one, there's a massive downslope about 170 from the green. Would you say is kind of where that starts on the downslope on number 1?
Yeah, maybe a little bit closer, probably like
150, 160. But we saw guys dropping the ball at like waist height, 80 to 100 yards from the green on the downslope, and it was going off of the back of the green.
Yeah, Underdog posted a video of ZB putting from there, 150, and I believe he put it off the green too. So
I've never seen it.
There's going to be someone, I think, who could. We talked about this today. If you could find odds on someone driving the green on a 500-yard hole, let us know, because there's a world if Robin Williams was in this field, he would do it. Fun fact, he is.
Is he in? What is the status there?
Oh, I think he's in the field.
I was opening up to see exactly how long the first hole is. U.S. Open scorecard. Stand by, because I want to get this exact number in case somebody out there can find the odds. The first hole is 488 yards.
Bet Online, Bovada, if you guys are listening, get us odds on X player to drive the first hole.
Not even X player. Just give me the field's odds on somebody to drive a 488 yard par 4, because I don't think we ultimately get there in this week's conditions. But I can now see, because somebody in the Discord and shout out there yesterday was like, and I think I've seen some other stuff about there being some linksy characteristics to Oakmont. We did not see any of that yesterday because it was too wet for it to really shine. We started to see some of it. We saw signs of what that could be, but nothing really that was truly firm and fast and truly running. But on the downwind down holes today, 1 and 10 specifically, the creek on 10 is something that we talked about yesterday that we thought wasn't really in play. Guys were hitting like driving irons into the creek today because it was so downwind and so much firmer.
Yeah, it was the creek that we talked about on 10. It's in play for sure. Guys were hitting irons that were close to getting there, and it was very downwind today. But with that being said, no one is going to attempt to drive it over the creek. It's not in play.
Are you sure that Bryson's not going to try it?
Bryson, I don't know. Maybe he will, but there's no like real benefit to that. I mean, if he gets it over, it's probably going to be on the green.
That'd be
So we
the
saw
coolest.
Bryson try to drive a green today. So
Yeah, we'll talk about Bryce in a second. But yeah, we saw some generational driving with the crank. But what was I going to ask? I don't remember what I was going to ask. But who do you think that there's any players, maybe based on what the conditions were yesterday versus today, and where you think the conditions might be the rest of the week? Has it in any way changed the style of player that you might be interested in? Or even specific names of players who might more prefer conditions that get a little firmer and faster than what we saw yesterday?
I think these firmer conditions lower the already low fairway hit percentage. I think guys, I mean, as the hours go on, I've been leaning really towards guys who are going to scramble from inside 100 yards at a higher rate than I might have thought. I kind of thought that already, but then you kind of talked me out of it, and I was with you with the softer fairways. But I really think the firmer conditions are going to make because no matter how long you hit it, even if you're Bryson, you're not hitting the green at any sustainable rate from the rough. You're just not doing it. So it's going to lead to so many guys hitting golf shots from 100 yards to 75 yards for their third, trying to get up and down for par. So I really think I'm going to lean on some strong wedge players in that regard. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that if you're hitting a lot of shots from 50 to 100 yards, you're not going to win because you have no chance of
you can't be doing that every hole. But I think it's going to be a higher rate than I was originally thinking.
Yeah, I think if you could finish in the top 10 to 20 by having like a generational 50 to 100 yard scrambling week where it doesn't really matter what else you do besides advance it inside of 50 and 100 yards within regulation basically every time. But with how good Scotty looks, and this isn't breaking news. Scotty Scheffler is generationally strapping it. Nothing shocking there, but we have come on here before and said that Scotty wasn't looking as good, or that this course maybe doesn't make sense for Scotty. It's so hard for me to even think of the rest of the players who could actually win, specifically when you start to get outside of like just the truest most. They're going to play great. They're going to be great ball striking and great putting. That's the only type of player that's going to be able to defeat Scotty. That when you get to the 50 to 100 yard scramblers, I just think it's like they would never be able to keep up with who ultimately ends up winning the tournament. But I totally agree that path is a way to like have a reasonably solid week.
Yeah. No, and I'm not picking golfers that are like, that's their game. Like they're up and down scramblers. Like I'm looking for stern ball strikers, but I'm looking for the stern ball strikers who can get it up and down from that range. Because some of the guys who are great long iron players are not great with their wedges. So I'm gonna look for those guys. So we'll see.
Do you think if you had to pick right now, just a clean yes or no, does Scotty win this week?
No, I'm gonna go with no.
I'm going to go with yes. I think I didn't necessarily come into the week. I mean, you can't go into any week not thinking that Scotty has a reasonable chance to win. And anytime we think that Scotty's not going to win, it's obviously within the spectrum of the fact that he is the greatest golfer in the world right now by far.
I'm gonna go with, this is a golf course that you're not gonna be able to stop your iron shots right wherever they land. He's gonna get bad breaks. He's gonna go over greens, and he's gonna be baffled. We know when something doesn't go his way, when something doesn't react the way it should, Scotty gets baffled. And not that he doesn't recover, but I think it's gonna happen often, and maybe as often as it's ever happened for Scotty. So, he's not gonna be able to play robot golf, and even if he's in the middle of the fairway, put that long iron to 20 feet. It's going to bound over more than he's used to. So that's my reason for that.
But I would say I agreed with that at Pine, but we were also seeing him hit bad shots and get like kind of reject and get angry. It's
easier to hit iron shots here than Pine for sure.
And he's so dialed. Like his level of focus is the highest that I think we've ever seen at tournament prep, and obviously Scotty's won many times in tournaments we've been to. Like, this is for this. It's just why I think, like, because I agree with what you're saying, that this is the type of course where it's not point A to point B perfect golf where Scotty can just hit it to perfection. I think he is going to face some of tricky situations and things that'll test his patience. But what I'm seeing so far this week is someone who looks like they know that that's been something that's held them back before.
Right.
And I just haven't seen, it's not even because, it's also just, he seems to be out prepping everybody. He's got Ted Scott, the smartest caddy in the game. He's grinding 4-footers, endlessly pouring in 4-footers on the putting green, like over and over and again. I just see, like, it's just so hard for me to get excited about who beats Scotty, especially when I think of PGA Tour players, besides maybe Rory and maybe Xander. It's like I can talk myself into, a live guy could beat him. But when he basically wins every PGA Tour event and never ever loses to the guys on the PGA Tour, I don't see how any of them would beat him in these conditions.
And yeah, I mean, I'll say it now. You'll say it too. No one's looked better out there than him these last 2 days. So it's not going to be an easy task, but I'll die on that hill.
I will. I don't know how I'm going to bet. I told you earlier that I don't even.
You got some time.
So who's under consideration for you at this moment? And in your state, are you, because you've the last few, not how many times straight have you bet without Scotty?
2 straight. It was Byron and Chuck Schwab. No, he didn't play. It was the one before the Byron. I don't know. I don't even know if it was 2 straight, but it was 4 times this year, I think. I was wrong really badly one of them.
And you're not going without this week?
I don't think so. There's some good numbers around there. So I think I'm going to also have time, but as of now.
If I decide to, like, not bet normally, which there's still some guys I want to see that would maybe give me the hope that they could beat Scotty. Like, I'm not fully committed to adjusting my strategy. I don't, even though I lean more likely that Scotty wins than he doesn't. But I lean towards the dual forecast. And I invented one earlier. Scotty, Tommy, dual forecast might be the bet of the week.
Olympic comp? I like it. I think that's the bet of the week too.
Because if Scotty was just like ahead by so much, and then Tommy just backdoored second, I don't know what the odds are on that. I haven't even looked into what the number is, so I can't declare it the bet of the week or even something that I'm going to bet until I know what the odds are. But when I invented that in my head, that's how it's going to finish 1-2. I was like, I at least got to feel out what the odds might look like on that situation.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good play.
All right. Let's start with this, actually. Well, let's start before what I was about to start with. $9.99 up on the site for the weekly, $34.99 for the monthly. The Boots Report is up there for day 2. The day 3 Boots Report will be up there along with the rest of the final thoughts, DFS, and all that good stuff tomorrow. Anything on the site before we continue on with the pod?
You mentioned it, but go grab a shirt. They are elite looking.
And they pop. I'd say the color pops more in person as well.
In the Pittsburgh sun. It's nice.
And as always, we truly appreciate everybody supporting, whether you support the site, whether you support the pod or YouTube or whatever it may be, or tossing a like and subscribe on there. We can't do it without you. We truly can't do it without you.
A ton of unique information on the site, like the winning score stuff, the score by hole, the score by 9 stuff is really, really cool, which shout out to you for putting together. And yeah, like 7,500 words yesterday, not quite that many today, but still great stuff on the site.
Yeah, and as I always say, like, at the end of the day, the fun thing about Boots is to try to project some of those things. Like on a weekly basis, obviously, we have a lot of historical data that makes it, you kind of know how the course is going to play from a statistical perspective. Being able to try to turn what we're like seeing with our eyes into some more like data-driven guesses, ultimately, guesstimates of how we think the course is going to play. It's always fun to see how they turn out at the end of the week. You know, I don't expect every prediction from a scoring or how certain holes are going to play out exactly true. There was no chance that's how it's going to play out. But it's fun to watch the tournament with at least a little bit more context and on what your senses of how you think it'll play out will be. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I really do too. It's going to be a fun week. So you want to get into a few names on the odds board?
Yeah, let's start with who from the non-Scotty group, and that honestly could be anybody outside of Scotty, who is most top of mind, knowing you haven't made any bets, I don't think, at this point.
No. I don't really know if I want to say it because I have someone who I really like right now, I think, but we haven't seen him yet. And you know who that is, I think.
Well, let me think about the people that we haven't seen that may also interest me, because I'm at the point right now where I haven't
this is telling us something about the course, because we've seen everyone outside of like 3 or 4 guys, and not many guys have looked good. It's the golf course, truthfully. So continue.
And that's why, like, for me to bet a guy, I have to be able to think they could theoretically beat Scotty. And what we've seen from Scotty and what we've seen from the rest of the guys that we've seen, there's a handful of guys who are at longer odds. I would say I definitely have a few guys further down the board where I might maybe have 1 or 2 of them on the card. I don't plan on betting a lot of guys down the board by any stretch of imagination. But there's some guys at the top that I'm also interested in seeing that it sounds like could be one of the guys that you're thinking. We haven't seen Rory yet. Rory's odds have drifted to where are we at with the live Rory situation? 15 to 1.
15. Where's that?
Bet online. There was rumors of a no, that can't have been true. I saw some.
There's a 16 boosted on 365.
And there was also a 16 earlier today on Bet Online. 15 is now up for grabs. You think it's a trap. You think the number is too good to be true. That's what you said last night. I know we haven't seen him yet, but are you still leaning that way?
I am, yeah. I think it's I do think it's a trap. I think the books are sharp on this. Rory has been 12 to 1 or less all year long. He's having the best season he's had in years, and now he's the longest he's been all year long. So I don't think it's a good bet.
I need to see him tomorrow to make a definitive statement on how I think Rory is going to play this week. It's hard for me to ignore, as I said last night, 6 straight top 10s in the U.S. Open, a course that should play to his driving strengths if he's driving it well. And we didn't see him today, but I saw some videos online of Rory going back to the build of driver. Is it the same build that he had at Augusta?
I believe so. It's the QI10, which I believe he had at Augusta.
And so if he starts driving it well again, Rory's at least the type of guy who I don't mind when the greens get glassy or it becomes a lag putt, be careful with the putter situation, drive down the middle, play to the middle of the greens. Like, at least Rory, and this is the other thing I said to you, and I'm not sure which angle I agree on yet. I'm just thinking on the other side of what you said. For the longest time, the thing about Rory in majors was he was never winning them. Year after year after year, Rory wasn't winning majors. This year, he wins the Players. He wins the Masters. And now he's going off at 15, 16 to 1, when for many years, he's been in the 8 to 12 range in majors. Sometimes he's drifted up when he's playing terrible. But this year has been the year. It's at least I can feel like I bet on a guy who can actually win. You know, if I was to go that way.
Yeah, and I've been on that hill that after the Masters he's freewheeling the rest of the year and doesn't care. So I'll be on that hill for this week as well.
Are you going to bet, or is this person that we're talking about JT? Because so there's plenty of players where we have, like, you're more right on them in certain cases, and there's other places that I'm more right. I know if it's a fact this year.
I want to mute you.
What's the path? You have a Southern Hills comp that you want to discuss. I think this ties in. I would tell the people your Southern Hills comp and who won there.
The last time I talked negatively about JT when I was like gearing up for betting him, it was obvious that I shouldn't have, and I did anyway. But I think I could do it this week. And my theory is, obviously JT is a premier ball striker. Obviously, when JT gets going, when he's hitting fairways and he's hitting long irons, generational, as good as anyone for the most part. Maybe not as good as anyone, but he's great. And if it's going to play out in some regard where guys, even Scotty Scheffler, are missing a lot of fairways. Say Scotty hits 5 to 7 fairways in the round, JT hits four to 6 fairways in a round. I trust JT just as much from Scotty to get up and down from 100 yards. I really do think it's going to be a test of that more than maybe you are thinking. I really think it's going to come down to gouge it out of the rough from 170 because you missed a fairway. You have 100 yards left. We've seen that so often this week, and I trust him in that regards. And that's kind of similar. There's so many wedge shots around Southern Hills, and I really like the leaderboard comp there. Obviously, he won there, and he's won this season for the first time in forever. He's ball striking it great again. But it's JT. But it is JT. And also, does JT retire with the U.S. Open? He's a Hall of Fame golfer. He's got like 18, 19 wins or whatever.
JT has missed the cut in back-to-back U.S. Opens.
He's also 45-1, which is like another real big reason. Like if he was 20-1, I would be like, what are we doing here? He's 45-1, which I think is an egregious number. Why is Colin Morikawa 25-1?
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna come on here and defend Colin for sure.
This isn't like a single B JT.
That'd be sick.
Maybe I'll do it. I'll do it.
JT single bullet would be unbelievable. Now, I will say, I do agree with what you're saying from his ability to get up and down from 50 to 100 yards. And I think he will do very well at that. And I think that raises his like floor versus other players that are similar to JT. And those are players that are going to miss a lot of fairways. And I agree, a lot of players are going to miss a lot of fairways. Most of the pushback I think I'll give, or I'm giving myself on like outright players, is can they beat Scotty or Bryson? Because Scotty and Bryson, you said Scotty will hit around the same number of fairways as JT. I genuinely don't think that's true. I think Scotty could hit double the number of fairways that like JT does. That's where I need to see him. And maybe if he's driving it in the fairway, then I'm down for JT, but I don't think he can like lose strokes off the tee and win like he did at Hilton Head, or he missed the cut at the PGA Championship, T31 at Memorial. He just hasn't done it on serious golf courses yet this year. But that is 100%
true.
We need to see it.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is I just think those top guys are going to miss more fairways than maybe the norm. So that's what I'm leaning on.
Yeah,
that's
and
we'll see how it plays out.
We always have to give the Xander report. You're the Xander whisperer in majors. As I've said many times, you know more about Xander than anyone knows about anything. He's at least still alive going to Wednesday for the first time this year for you, I think.
Yeah, he's been crossed off on Monday, crossed off on Tuesday before. He's definitely still under consideration. And did we see great things from him? No. But did we see great things from anyone not named Scotty or Bryson? No. Now, I did say that we need to see how he's driving it. The driver looked 6 out of 10. Nothing crazy. Nothing like we've seen last year. The iron play has been great. Everything else has been great. But this golf course is so difficult that I think he can rely on other parts of his game, and he doesn't have to drive it perfect. Like I'm saying with the JT, I think it's so tough that guys are just going to really be missing fairways left and right, truthfully. But with that being said, I need to see more from Xander tomorrow before I really pull the trigger. I think he's close, and this is the first time I've ever been really considering him.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day,
he's got dog.
Right. That's what I was going to say. For everything we say, we said it yesterday, I've written it up on the site. The number one thing remains perseverance, dog, tenacity, Pittsburgh, grit, steel-toed boots, mentality. For all the things we'll talk about which like stats we think are more important or which styles of play are more important, that to me continues to reign supreme. And a guy like Xander, you know that he can do it, and you know that he's just going to play 72 holes of the smartest golf that he possibly can. And that's just not true of so many guys in the field. And I want to talk about one of them because I've talked about him all year. Joaquin Niemann.
People came here for this combo.
We came here for this. This was,
but we might not have came to Boots if he wasn't in the field.
Because I haven't seen Jocko since he's been this version of Jocko. I saw him all of last year, and he played great in practice rounds. But this is live merchant, live every time, win every time, Jocko. And so I was excited to see it with my own eyes. And it was an interesting journey, for sure. Because on the first hole, he walks up and hits driver way left, but so far left, he was in the middle of the 10th fairway. And honestly,
what we talked about yesterday.
Pause here for a second. Why aren't more guys aiming for the other fairways? Are you allowed to do that, or is it going to be internal OB?
I think you are allowed to do that, but the other fairways are narrow too. That's probably why. But he definitely didn't mean to do that. It was a blatant pull, but it ended up being perfect. That's what we said yesterday. The wide miss is a lot better than the narrow miss, and he would have had a perfect line into hole 1 from 9 fairway.
But then from there on out, he was hitting shots that no one else in the field besides Scotty. But then the thing about Jocko is he combines it with distance that only Rory and Bryson have.
Joaquin shots are unique to him. No one else can hit those shots.
It's truly unbelievable to watch. Like, I don't know if I'm going to bet him this week. I don't think I trust him enough to have the dog, to have the tenacity in these types of conditions. I really don't. But it's comical. He hits it further than every other guy we see driving, but he does it but with these insane shots that are just like, oh, I'm going to hook it 25 yards. It could go 400 yards straight if he just hit it on a line. It's unbelievable stuff.
Which is a concern for us, truthfully, because we don't want you to do that. But he pulled one off on the hole we talked about, hole 7. That was, no joke, 30 yards of hook when I took it over the OB back into the fairway, and it was one of the longest drives. It was on par with Nicholas Norgard, one of the longest drivers in the field, into a wind, uphill, just because he wanted to. I don't think that's a good strategy, but the talent is beyond imagination.
No, and that's the thing. I don't think I can do it. I still probably will. I honestly don't know. I'm going to have to think about it because he's doing a lot of the things that I'm kind of against, which is like overly saucy, like too complicated, not a great major track record, all things that I should be saying are bad. But what he does is so unbelievable and so much clearly better than the rest of the players. Like, it's hard to stand there and watch him hit shots that no one else can even possibly hit. He's the only guy. It wasn't just the driving, which we know is generational. On 7, the toughest hole, not of all time, but up there. But it was a little different today. The wind direction shifted, made it a little bit easier driving hole. He hits it to 25 feet. Perfect way to play 7. And then he goes, let me test it out from the bunker. There's no reason to do this. If he hits it in this bunker, he made a huge mistake, which maybe he knows he's going to make. First guy we've seen from long range, 180-ish plus, hit the green out of a fairway bunker, and it was unbelievable.
Don't know how he cleared the lip, honestly. Barely gets it over, and it just so much spin from the sand and just stops 20 feet left of the flag. A 1 in 10 shot for sure, but Wako pulls it off. Truthfully, it was only got to do it. He really was. Him and the dentist.
The dentist. Somebody yelled, "You made that ball hurt like a root canal," and he did not like it. He did not seem happy about it at all.
Getting a ton of coverage.
And rightfully so. He used to caddy at the course. That's super sick.
Super sick.
But yeah, the Wako journey for me, because I've bet him in both majors this year. I've been a Jocko defender. This is the first time I've actually seen him bootsing this year with my eyes. And it was unbelievable. Every shot, besides the first tee, which would have ended up being a perfect shot. So even when he missed, it missed perfectly, which is what I want to see, because he's not going to hit it perfect every time, but I want to see the worst shot he could hit was totally fine, because he's a big miss guy.
Yeah.
And I think that in the same way that you were talking about JT, and again, I agree that a bunch of guys are going to play really well from 50 to 100 yards and play well because they're good with that wedge game. Jocko's saucy with that mid-range wedge game too. That might be what he's best at from a approach perspective.
Yeah, if he can roll some putts, he'll make it happen. He'll be in the mix.
Ludwig. I want to talk about Ludwig really quick because we wrote up on the site and I said we needed to talk about it on the pod because it's a longer discussion. Sometimes it's hard to even explain what takes place when you're this conversation, strokes gain caddy involved. So I thought it was better for the pod. And I think it's interesting because another guy you were interested in going into today was Lud. And when we were talking about him yesterday, I was kind of out, but I was at least, if he had showed up and he was nuking driver down the center, I would have been like, okay, that's all he needs to do. And if he does that, he can compete with anybody here. The very first hole, as we're walking towards the green, I say to you, I really hope he doesn't hit 3-wood here because that would make no sense and go against everything that he would have to do to play well. What does he do? What happens?
Hits 3-wood, and he lays back to 200 yards on hole 1, which if he would have hit driver, he would have had far less, maybe even like a flip wedge in because it would have rolled down the biggest hill of all time. Now, he wasn't the only guy hitting driver, but Ludwig, being the elite driver that he is, has no choice but to lean on that. Bryson would never, ever, 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 ever imagine doing that. Bryson knows what he's good at, and he leans in on his strength, and he almost wins every single time. Ludwig hits 3-wood. He's in the first cut. It's a fine shot, but it makes it a much more difficult approach shot, which he's not doing well. He's not hitting his long irons good at all right now. And then he goes up to his ball, walks 40 yards past his ball, and he's like, Joe, why would we? He didn't say this, but he clearly was like, Joe, why wouldn't we just hit driver here? He's like, measuring the distance.
He's like standing 30 yards forward in the fairway, like looking around, like, why wouldn't we have just like nuked it down the middle? And we've talked about the strokes gain caddy with that
him.
pairing before, and it's what was terrible at the PGA. It doesn't make sense to me. To your point, the Bryson. Say what you want about Bryson. There's obviously now tons of people are a fan of Bryson. But there's still some people I think who are like out on his shtick or whatever it may be. He's using the optimal strategy for what he's good at. Ludwig, you just watch him out there. You watch these other guys prep, and then you watch his results and see that he's well outside the top 100 in bogey avoidance. He's wide a course like this. His only chance of playing great is to lean on his driver. And the very first time we see him, he's laying back he's not even been a good iron player lately. So it's not like that's been unbelievable. And he's like, let's hope that this works this week. And then what does he do? It's off the back of the green. It's all problems. It was frustrating to see.
And it's truthfully an easy switch, an easy fix. And he can come out there, lean on his driver tomorrow, lean on his driver Thursday through Sunday, and play great. But I just can't trust it right now. Like, what have he been doing recently? And I wanted to bet Ludwig so bad. I really did. I was talking about him all morning. Everything you said to me about a comp, I was like, okay, yeah, Ludwig checks that box. Everything. Kind of joking too. And I can't do it because it's just so unserious with the iron play, with the prep. And why am I going to put my eggs in that basket at not a really expensive number, but a more expensive number than some other guys if I'm not seeing what I want to see?
Yeah, I mean, he's 30-1. I would expect. I mean, JT. I'd rather ride with JT for sure. With you on that than Lud, I would say.
If Ludwig drifts to 40, I'm gonna have no choice because the path is so it's flip a switch. Just don't be stupid, which is easier said than done. But it's the path is so there.
So you're saying if somehow tomorrow something in the Lud camp, they decide to start using optimal strategies and they say, Lud, we have to drive it as long as we can on every hole.
If we get there tomorrow morning and we run into Lud on hole 1 and he rips driver, runs down the hill, we would look at each other and be like, hallelujah. Finally, like it's what you should be doing. Because I guarantee Bryson's doing. We saw Bryson on hole 1 from across the golf course down at a spot where no one else was because he's hitting driver. Was Ludwig going to hit that far? No, but he would have been he would have had a 130-yard shot versus a 200-yard shot that he could easily control. He tried to land a mid-iron at the flag. Never in a million years would it ever stop on these concrete greens. It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense.
Yes, I agree.
Tough.
I agree. As
a fan of him, it's tough.
If we show up tomorrow and he's driving it down the middle and playing aggressively, I could be down for sure. Because another guy who's always going to play the optimal way for what he's good at as a golfer is Scotty. And when the top two guys
leans on his strength.
Yeah, when the top two, that's just the hard thing about betting this week is like when the top two guys also in a course like this have been prepping and are smarter from how they're approaching the week than a lot of the other players. And you add, what did we say? If you put Ted Scott on Lud's bag this week, he could easily win.
Easily win. It's tough. It really is tough. And on hole 8, every single guy is hitting driver, for the most part, hitting driver. Ludwig fans at 3-wood, and what's his name? Sean Foley said to him, "Did you take 1,000 RPMs off that?" I don't know if you heard that, but he said, "Did you take a thousand spin off that?" Because he swung so light on purpose, nowhere near the green. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
and I'm sure. Skyrim was like, "Yeah, smooth the light one up there. Just hit it. If you're gonna do that, do it with the driver." Or every guy who was hitting a 3-wood was trying to roast it, and they were still coming up short. Obviously, Ludwig's a longer hitter, but he was nowhere close. It's poor stroke skin caddy, and I've been a defender, but I'm with you. I'm with you now. I'm not out on Ludwig. I'm out on the duo.
That's fair, and I think this is probably the most I've seen you saying you were hyped on a guy, and then based on what you saw, turn against him. And it was just because it was the main dynamic that would concern you about Lud. Like, if he's not going to play to his strengths, it doesn't matter if he plays well or not. He has to lean on what he's good at. But we'll see. I mean, he still looks the part, of
it's
the
like
guys.
Scotty Scheffler being the best with a 60 degree of anyone, and him trying to get saucy with a pitching wedge for a week around the green, just because. Like, it makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. We'll see. Yeah, like you said, if the number drifts on Lud and he shows up and he's driving tomorrow, I could be in. Because I bet him at the PGA, and from a course fit perspective, it makes all the sense in the world. And that's why we're being so harsh on this one detail, because at the end of the day, I'm not saying that Lud couldn't play amazing with whatever strategy he wants to use. I'm saying to get that final level to be bettable from an outright perspective against Scotty and Bryson. Because what was your takeaway from what we saw from Bryson? And also, is he the most difficult player to find on a golf course every single time?
That remains true. We always look for Bryson and then have to sometimes see the report that Bryson was nowhere to be found. We got there early because Bryson was supposed to tee off. We're not early. We got there early for some other guys. That Bryson was slotted for 10:30, I believe. We go to Bryson's spot at 10:30. Obviously nowhere to be found. And we're like, this is just extremely on brand. Bryson, we can never find Bryson. And as we're about to walk out the golf course, we see Bryson around 4 o'clock, super, super late. One of the last tee times out there, playing with who was he playing with?
Zach Blair.
Just because why not? And he was scheduled for a tee time early, and he just didn't show up to it. We know he grinds all day, but it's just frustrating. Good signs from Bryson, but still, it's just funny that he's impossible to track. That's why in past Booch reports, he's been missing because he just doesn't go to where he's supposed to go. But we got him this week. He's on the site.
Yeah, no, I was glad we got him because we stuck it out. But it was good that we had all the historical knowledge and that we knew that sometimes he just always plays at the very end of the day, because I think he just grinds so hard the whole day on random stuff. And then he also wants to test out so many things on the greens. Yeah. And he takes so much time. But the first thing we saw from him, because as we were going around waiting to see him, it was like, we need to see what Bryson looks like, because obviously it's Bryson. It's the U.S. Open. He's the defending champ. He's second on the odds board. He's capable of beating Scotty in the U.S. Open. Like, that's something I would say obviously makes sense that Bryson's capable of doing that. And then we get to 2, a hole that no one has even considered flying over the bunker and going for the green. No one, not even has come close at all whatsoever. He hits 2 straight drives basically to the front edge of the green, both laser beam dead straight. And we looked at each other and we were like, do we just go home? What's the point of this?
If he pulled that left lost ball, if he was right, he was basically dead. It's not the two landing area is wide for the field, but Bryson decided to drive it 300 yards up a chute like this wide. I don't know if that's going to be a strategy, but probably because he's leaning on his strengths. Leaning on his strengths. That's what he's good at. Why not do it? And it was perfect. They were absolutely perfect.
I would say the rest of what we saw from Bryson after that at least gave me
wasn't perfect. Yeah,
wasn't perfect. Like I didn't see enough from Bryson where I'm leaning towards single bullet. But again, it's only day 2. Anything could change on day 3. Obviously everything we say, it's golf. You go to the course the next day, guys can play it differently. Just look at what happens on the week-to-week basis in any round of golf. But I would have to see something truly every hole that basically for me to want to go to a single bullet scenario. That's how I feel.
I agree with you. I do agree with you.
Shot of the day, shot of the year, shot of a generation, player of a generation, likely your winner, maybe single bullet for me. This is only a semi serious take, but it is at least semi-serious. BG single bullet. And then also without Scotty, and then also dual forecast, like bet all 3 of those, the odds would still be.
I mean, one of them will win.
Yeah. Tell people what we saw on the 9th hole. You tweeted about it, I believe. I think the picture.
Yeah, let me read the tweet because it explained it pretty well. People are calling it one of the greatest shots in golf history. Rare to capture one of the best boots moments on camera, but Ben Griffin delivers. Choke down 3-wood. Standing in the random hazard of uncertainty, cuts it up to the heavily guarded and difficult 9th green. Shot of a century.
Ryan Gerard yelled across. Ryan Gerard's obviously in the fairway because Ryan Gerard only stripes it down the middle and onto the green. Ryan Gerard might be the greatest player of all time that's not named BG or Scotty. And he shouted across wow, great shot. And I was standing right next to him. I had actually, because we had yet to see a player in this type of situation, but it was the exact type of situation in the random random hazards of uncertainty that could happen, because anything can happen in the random hazards of uncertainty. His ball was sitting on the red line of the hazard just as the rough started to curve down towards it. In the way he was standing, and I was like, he's going to hit wood. I literally turned to you. I was like, what? Where he was positioned, I was like, I'm in the exact spot that if he just swings hard and hooks this, it's going to drill me right in the face. And yeah. I would say, you see people off the tee and they're always moving when people tee off. You go to enough, you see shots, you're pretty comfortable where you're standing. I thought to myself, I'm going to move because there's a chance that BG is too confident right now. And he just is trying some crazy shit and he hits me, and it would be a full circle moment from the pod to then he hits me in the practice round. I was like, there's too many things that could happen here. So I move slightly to the right so that I'm out of range and I'm close to you and you stood where you were. He hits this shot and I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I turn and see you have a video of it. And I'm like, this has never happened before. We've never got the generational boots shots on film. And this one was, and I was so excited when that happened.
Yeah, that was great. And I wish I could have panned over to see where the ball landed, but it was right up the chute of the green, the 9th green, which is one of the hardest holes in the course, especially today, into a stiff breeze. And he put it to a spot where anyone would have loved to hit with a 5-iron or whatever iron they were hitting. He was hitting a 3-wood like a baseball bat. So BG, continue to amaze us.
He is just strolling around with confidence. I'm in on the BG train, always and forever. But it was amazing to witness. It's up there. My current top 3 all-time boot shots.
Scotty at the Open. I wasn't there.
At the PGA at Oak Hill. Is that he?
I don't know, but I remember you said something about Scotty.
Yeah, it's this one. The number 1 boot shot of all time was at the PGA. No, it's Scotty. Hold on. Let me tell the story. Let me give you my top 3. Cam Davis has also, CD, unrelated. CD walked off the course today.
Yeah, Cam Davis realized that the course was playing at such a hard rate. He's like, I cannot beat Scotty Scheffler or Bryson, what am I doing out here? Because it was playing at its peak capacity today. He's like, I'm just wasting time and wasting mental energy right now. Played it maybe 3 holes and it was like, I'm done with this. So yeah, I tell the
We
rest.
only saw one player walk off the course and not finish their round, and it was CD.
Love you, Cam.
I mean, honestly, it was. I saw him on the putting green later. I hope he just calms down and plays well this week because we love CD. It's just like it's funny too because earlier in the day we had said how many quads is CD going to make in these conditions, and then there it was. But at the same time, I've seen CD hit the greatest practice round shots of all time. So there's like a separate vault of best shots of boots shots of all time that are all CD. But in the non-CD situation, it is Scotty at Oak Hill on number 6, which was like the hardest hole in PGA Championship history. And it was during the practice round, so I didn't know it was going to be the hardest hole in PGA Championship history. I was like, this hole looks pretty hard, but I didn't know it was going to be that hard. And there was a breeze, probably about the same level of breeze there was today, like 15-mile-an-hour breeze into his face. And I'd seen guys playing this hole over and over and over again. You know how it is in boots. You want to watch the difficult holes a lot. He gets in the fairway, which not many guys were doing in the first place. And if you hit in the rough, you had to pitch out. So he drives down the middle. He probably had like 6-iron. No, the pin was on this tiny little knob. And no one, I'd watched 20 shots into the screen and no one even come close to hitting it next to the pin. He just casually, and that's why his demeanor was so much different than it is on a week like this. He was just joking around. He literally like grabbed the club out of the bag, like tossed it in the air a little bit, and then like was just messed around. No practice, not focused whatsoever. He walks up and hits an absolute laser beam dead at the pin, does not carve an inch, lands 1 foot next to the hole. And I was like, that was before Scotty is what Scotty is now. Like Scotty was still amazing at that time for sure. But that's when I saw that, I was like, this dude truly is different. And now every shot he ever hits that we see is of high quality. But I was like, this dude is truly different. That's the number 1 boot shot of all time at the moment.
Yeah, I wish I could have been there for that. But where would you rank BG? Third after Waco number 2?
Third after Waco number 2. Because Waco number 2, you're referencing Troon, right?
Correct. It's the when you look in the dictionary of trajectory of traj, it will send you a video of this shot. We've explained it before on the pod.
Go back to the open pod if you want that. But we said today it was such a good shot that if we went up to Jocko and asked him about it, he would for sure remember.
Yeah, because it was a weird situation because it was horrible weather that day. We were the only ones up the left side of this fairway, and Wako walks up, and me and Adam are like baffled. We're like can't contain our energy because it was that good of a shot. And Wako notices us and gives us like a little wink, and it was truly one of like the best drive I've ever seen because it was blowing so hard, and he hit it maybe this high off the ground.
No one was even coming close to hitting the fairway, and he absolutely minted one down the middle. But with the most outrageous trash, and then he gives you the thumbs up. It truly was. And then the best, excuse me, the best in-tournament boot shot, actually at Traby, which you may or may not be able to make it up to
Xander
next week, was Xander from
on 8 or 9. No, 6.
It's like 6 or 7, whatever that par 5 is after the long par 3. I think it's 1, 2. It's like 6.
Yeah.
It's 6. He was like 270 with a 3-wood. It was in the air for years. If I see that from Xander tomorrow, because last year Xander was hitting unbelievable shots all the time, and that's why last year was so great because we went to Boots and you like shout out to you. We said this a million times for trusting that Xander can actually win, and he did it.
Yeah.
But we were seeing generational stuff. And this was during that run last year at Traby, right in the middle of it. That was the greatest 3-wood that's ever been hit in competition.
Without a doubt. So hopefully we can get more of that tomorrow. That would be lovely.
Yeah, I think we'll probably. We haven't seen Pat yet either. Pat, do you have any thoughts on the chart? Usually this is a good time to check in on the chart. I know you looked at the chart ahead of time. The chart's been hot. The chart, I would say, has been going well. Thoughts on any of the guys on the chart that you were surprised by?
Surprised by? I'm not sure if I was surprised, but I was maybe considering Keegan. Keegan looked solid out there. Rahm, maybe a surprise to see. Not surprised to see Harris English, but he has absolutely zero chance to win this golf tournament. Not a hot take, but he has zero chance. And yeah, that's really the only thoughts.
I got to figure out who I'm going to bet. It's going
Me as well.
to be. It's going to be something that's figured out basically right now as the pod comes to an end. Start thinking through final thoughts, thinking through some of the main things that I want to see out on the course tomorrow. What are you going to be on the lookout? Final day for tomorrow. Anything?
Yeah, just it's going to be a shorter day. We've got flights to catch, places to be. So Boots Report should be up a little earlier than it was today with the final thoughts, with the final picks, with everything else you can imagine. So we'll be out there early looking for our dudes. And yeah, definitely drop comments and who you want us to see. If we can get to them, we'll get to them. But we've done a great job seeing everyone that we can these last 2 days. So as always, appreciate the support.
My final shout out. We always have to cover the low AM market. That's one of the best parts about the US Open. What's this guy's last name? Tyler Weaver. Tyler Weaver was playing with Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also say I've always talked about Brooks on the pod too. I genuinely don't think Brooks can win, but there's 110 to 1s out there, and he at least looked better than I've seen him at other times. I probably won't bet it. It genuinely has no chance of winning, but I have to just mark for pod history that if Brooks wins at this number, I would feel as foolish as I could possibly ever feel because he didn't look horrible out there. Would you agree with that from Brooks? I know you're not a huge Brooks guy.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Brooks guy, but he did look he didn't hit it as well as he hit it at Troon, which obviously didn't end up well, but he was hitting the ball solidly.
But playing alongside him,
Tyler Weaver,
freshman of the year, not this season, but the season before at Florida State. Flusher, and my new live favorite in the low AM market.
Yeah, definitely. If you could find Tyler Weaver versus Ben James, hammer. Full betting advice.
The funniest part about the low AM market is it can go against you so hard. These guys could shoot 100. Like if you're looking for clips or things to clip that we get wrong, because there's always going to be things that we get wrong, you can get the low AM way off. A guy could shoot 100 who you thought was going to play well because they can eject at a unique level. Like remember last year when we had I can't even remember the guy's name, but he was like 2 under through 2. They were 1-2 on the odds board.
Yeah, it was Omar.
It was Omar and somebody else. It sucks that Omar's not in the field this week.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good to have him because he played good at UCLA this year, I believe. So he'll get there soon.
All right. That's a wrap. We'll have everything up on the site tomorrow. We will have a great week watching the golf. At the end of the day, we always say, whether it's betting, whatever, DFS, whatever it may be, at the end of the day, the number one thing should be to enjoy these weeks as a golf fan because we only get them 4 weeks a year, Jared. It's only one more day of Boots tomorrow and then one more Boots of the year. So let's get after it.
Let's get after it.